Very good. Director, noting it is 7:04. I think you can begin. Do we want to do a roll call?
Can do, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
Commissioner Racines,
Here.
Commissioner Wallace,
He's on his way. He was in Google with me.
Commissioner Wallace, we could see you. Can you hear us?
You hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Naves,
Yeah.
Commissioner Pope,
Excused.
and Commissioner Rebel.
Excused.
Mr. Chairman, noting we do expect Commissioner Pope to be here momentarily, you do have a quorum.
Very good. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will quickly read the disclaimer. Key decisions pertaining to the Wyoming Stable Token Initiative will be made by the Commission or of the Stable Token Commission or the state legislature in public meetings such as this. Further, the only commissioners are those appointed by statute, the governor, or a majority vote of the commission. At this time, the Frontier Stable Token, also known as the FRNT or Front Token, issued by the commission, the first Wyoming Stable Token, is now available for purchase by the public on Kraken, a Wyoming domiciled cryptocurrency exchange. A link to the listing page for Front is on our website's homepage. The Front token has been deployed on mainnet Arbitrum, Avalanche Base, Ethereum, Hedera, Optimism, Polygon, and Solana blockchains, and smart contract addresses are published on the Commission's website. Any centralized exchange claiming to sell or distribute Front or Wyoming stable tokens besides Kraken should be considered fraudulent. Caution is advised for users looking to source Front from decentralized exchanges. Please do not attempt to purchase tokens from unauthorized sources. Information outside these public meetings should only be considered factual and legitimate if it is distributed through our official channels. At this time, these are limited to our website at stabletoken.wyo.gov, the Wyoming Legislature website at wyoleg.gov, and our social media channels with the @WyoStable username on Twitter, YouTube, GitHub, and Warpcast. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I could do a very brief overview of the agenda and kick us off here.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is again a continuation of our commission meeting that was suspended on Thursday, the 16th. So we will be going through the rulemaking updates for both reserves management and token management, reflecting statutory updates following the legislative session. We'll go through a criteria update for our Q2 2026 blockchain selection exercise. We'll go through job content questionnaires for our AWAC roles going into the next biennium. We'll review the blockchain data analytics and intelligence policy in an anticipated executive session. And then also in that executive session, there will be a discussion of appointment of the executive director for the next biennium. I will note that there is no public comment during the special meeting of the commission. And with that, Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions, I could proceed to the rulemaking.
Let me ask if there are any questions. I don't see any, so please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in terms of rulemaking, again, we have two different sets of rules in front of us, and these are edits to rules that have already been promulgated. These are our reserves management rules, as well as our token management rules. And these have both been updated, more so on the reserve side than the token side, but both updated to reflect the statutory amendments to the Stable Token Act put forth by the legislature and enacted following the 2026 legislative session. So we will go through these at a high level. And if there are any questions along the way, please do feel free to stop me. So the first rule set is the reserves management. Chapter 1 is our general provisions focused on definitions and delegated authority. You can see in terms of updates to definitions, there is one to the definition of commission staff, which we've added subordinates under senior officers to the commission staff. This is essentially recognizing the team may scale in due time. So that will allow us to have a more complete picture in that definition of who is serving the commission. Scrolling down, you can see that we've added two other definitions, one called retained funds. That is to reflect the statutory updates at WS 40-31-106, subsection C, Romanet 3, in which the flow of funds has been updated. Again, the cascade has now been adjusted so that We first back the stable token on a one-to-one basis in the trust account. That hasn't changed. When interest income is generated from the reserves, what has changed is the commission will first extinguish its obligation to the state and pay for its own budget, followed by the over-collateralization of the token. Then after that, we hit that 2% mark. Then we have in this Romanet 3, from any funds remaining after the expenditures and transfers required by paragraphs 1 and 2 of the subsection, funds in the administration account shall be retained in the administration account for savings in an amount consistent with rules set by the commission to provide for future expenditures under this paragraph. So essentially, we've created this retained funds concept to capture the situations in which we would be retaining essentially a retained earnings bucket. And then we've also added the definition of solicited assets, essentially any type of digital asset that is transferred to the commission's publicly disclosed digital wallet addresses, following some request for donations, and validation on our side of where those requests come from. And again, that is to reflect the new language at section 106, subsection E, in which the commission may, subject to rules promulgated by the commission, accept federal grants, other contributions, grants, gifts, transfers, bequests, and donations from any source for deposit into any account created in this section, provided that funds deposited into an account under this section shall be subject to the requirements of that account. So essentially, we could take in donations to the trust account, admin account, or liquidity fund account as specified. But that is a new concept and a new ability that we were granted by statute. So we've added a definition to reflect that. Moving on, other than some minor changes to sections that were updated, there was one addition in section 4 of chapter 1 under limited delegation of fiscal authority under Romanet 2, in which we may enter into agreements with service providers, including the licensed service providers, those who are reselling the token on our behalf. We've added an ability for the agency to create, approve, amend, and maintain an onboarding process for prospective licensed service providers and a risk assessment matrix to determine the viability of the prospective LSP. So that is something that was perhaps implicit in the authority previously, but now that we're going through these processes and making sure that we are doing our diligence behind the scenes, we thought that that would be a wise add for this delegation of authority.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that-
Mr. Chairman. Anthony, if this is kind of in regards into the delegation to subordinates there, I'm not sure whether or not that means that everybody in the office can do this. I mean, it's delegated to you, but can you redelegate those things to anybody in the office, including subordinates now with the change in the rules?
So through the chair, Commissioner Meyer, that is correct. So this has not changed. The delegation is to the director. You are correct. And then in subsection B, the director's ability then allows delegation to the commission staff, provided that we communicate that to the commission.
Yeah, I would say do that in writing. We kind of have some different sign-off sheets for different duties and powers or whatever in our office, but it's a formal process, not just saying, "Hey, Joe, why don't you go do this?" And you can write a check for 100 million. But
Yep.
so yeah, you've got to just so long as it's documented and you have a procedure that you follow and everybody understands it, I think I'd be comfortable with the delegation, especially with the office the size that it is now. But if you get 20 people in there and you have that same thing, then not all 20 people are going to have the authority that all the other 19 people have. So there you have
Through the
it.
chair, Commissioner Meyer.
Please, go ahead.
Excellent point. I will note that written communication is required under the current rule set, so we're not adjusting that.
All right.
Any other questions on chapter 1?
I hear none. I note for the record that Commissioner Pope has joined.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will proceed to chapter 2. I believe we have one small edit here, which is, and apologies if the page numbers got zapped on this. We converted to a PDF, but one small change in chapter 2, where we note that we will not onboard token holders other than licensed service providers. Essentially, this is reflecting that we are not issuing to or redeeming from tokens with the token holders directly. That goes to the licensed service providers. We just felt that the rest of this sentence was a bit vestigial and not required, so we zapped that. That there for a second, in case there are any questions.
Questions? It doesn't appear to me there are, so please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to chapter 3. We do have edits to section E here in regards to the financial accounts that we maintain. Just to put it at a high level, the revisions to subsection E are simply reflecting the revised cascade of funds that I spoke of just a moment ago. So this is where, as we generate investment earnings, again, that's the interest on the reserves, those move into the administration account first, rather than the liquidity fund account. Again, this is simply a reflection of the fact that we're meant to pay down the agency obligation first, and then we will over collateralize after that, rather than the other way around. So this is simply a reflection of the new cascade that we're going to have. And then in Romanet 2, again, once those obligations are satisfied, then we move the funds into the liquidity fund account. And please go ahead.
Just a quick question. And I probably missed it somewhere, but when we say no monies, is there a definition of monies earlier? You can just direct me to it.
That, I believe, is just referring to, I don't believe we have a definition for monies here. We wanted to be sensitive about that. But this is a reflection of we refer to the operational cost of the account in statute. So we don't have that here in the rules. This is to pay for the operational costs of the act.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Doesn't appear that there are.
Yeah, I guess I'd make a comment about the construction of that sentence. It's long. And we're just going over some rules. If we would have put a period in one of the rules, we would have got rid of a lot of unclear things. And so I guess in the future that, you're putting a whole bunch of things in there, and at the end of it, and when, basically when operational costs are satisfied, period. And then if you went in and say operational cost include, and you can use but not limited to if you want to, but it kind of makes it clear. I guess in the legislative operations we call that candling, where or you'd have Romanet 1 through 5 or something that would have it in there. So it's a little clearer if you don't have one whole run-on sentence. But that's just, I guess my drafting preference, because you do it in there in E, then I, and Romanet 2. But a lot of times if you drop down to an A and B, B, C, D, it's so clearer because you get a one whole sentence. It's like, I don't know, 40, words long. So that's just kind of when you get into formatting, I think that's something at some point in time, we need to start to practice a little bit, a different kind of drafting, just to, not have any ambiguity. Okay? Wouldn't you agree? I don't know, anybody. You guys can comment on it there. It's just that it's to me, if you have short, concise sentences, and then your descriptors are laid out in a clear one, two, three, four manner or alphabetically, then you know uh, exactly how things are.
Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, happy to take that under advisement for the revisions.
Thanks. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So moving on from chapter 3, again, just when we updated, again, references to liquidity fund account in Romanet 4 here. And that is, I believe, the end of, sorry, one more. And then in section 4 of chapter 3, we talk about the permitted investments. Again, we have cash, treasury securities that are with the maturity of 365 days or less, or the repos 30 days or less, or that are structured under a money market fund under 17 CFR section. Here's one, 272A7. That is a typo. That should be 272A7. I apologize for that. But that would be, again, reflecting the statutory update at 40-31-106 subsection A. Section A. So we'll clarify that. Okay, and that is chapter 3. Chapter 4, all we did was lowercase the term statute, just to catch on our side. Chapter 5, let's decide to scroll. Oh, no, I apologize. That's the end of it. Okay, so that's the end of reserves management. I apologize. The token management goes to chapter 6. Any questions on the reserves management updates, noting that we will need to update section 4. Pardon, we will need to update chapter Chapter 3, Section 4, subsection B, Romanet 3 to reflect the 270 part CFR 270, not 370.
Okay, are there any questions? Any questions? Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then we will review the token management rules, and then I would suggest a motion, but we will get through those first. So now on the token management side, just noting in chapter 1 within the definitions, we've made the same update to the term commission staff. We have created a definition called locked. What locked means is a unsolicited asset that are set aside inside the commission's dedicated wallets, but will not be circulated or used for any purpose. So essentially what this means is, now that we've put some context behind solicited assets and unsolicited assets, we wanted to be more clear that when unsolicited assets come in, they are essentially frozen, but we wanted to be distinguishing the legal concept of freezing an asset when the commission gets a temporary lawful legal directive and we actively take an action to freeze an asset in a wallet. That is different from an unsolicited asset coming into our wallet and being segregated and kept inside that wallet. So we've come up with the term locked to indicate that that asset will not be moving and will stay there pending further diligence. And we'll get to that, I believe, in chapter 6 of these token rules. We've also added the definition of solicited assets here, same as the reserves management. And I believe, and we added for the definition of unsolicited assets, we've included fiat in there as well. If we don't know where that comes from, and it's sent to our account by some mechanism. No changes to the delegated authority for the token management rules. Any questions on chapter 1?
Yeah, Anthony. Mr. Chairman, would an unsolicited asset be like an anonymous donation and then, but we can't do anything with it?
So through the chair, Commissioner Meyer, that is correct. Something that our digital wallets are public. Anyone can send functionally any asset, provided it's on a compatible chain, to our digital wallets. And if we don't know the source of those, we're going to want to be quite careful about how we handle them if we're unsure of the origin.
Okay, so, but let's just say we get an unsolicited donation, but we know the source of them. Is that still an unsolicited donation?
Uh, Through the chair, Commissioner Meyer, that would probably fall more in the lines with solicited assets, which again, we are now able to take in under the statutory revisions at 40-31-106E. So again, now we have the ability to take in solicited donations. It would fall under this definition here.
Yeah, okay, then, so we have the unsolicited assets, we can't do anything with it. And then it gets unfrozen for whatever reason by a court case or something, but it's still an unsolicited asset and we can't do anything with it for any purpose.
So through the chair, Commissioner Meyer, I want to be specific that the court case or any kind of legal process pertains more to the freeze and seize function, right? So if we receive a temporary lawful legal directive, which is now subsection S here, if we get some kind of proclamation from an enforcement authority that says you need to freeze an asset, our team will need to take an action to perform an interdiction and freeze that asset in a wallet. Similarly, you have the final lawful legal directive where if we receive one of those, again, that's a final order. We have to seize the asset. That's an action that happens on chain that we need to perform. So with that, those are both distinct from a digital asset is received at one of our public wallet addresses, and we just don't know what the source nor substance of that asset is. We just let it sit there, again, locked in a wallet.
Yeah, I guess locked for any purpose, and I don't see any remedy with even with a court action. If we say any purpose, then we're kind of in conflict with our rules versus a court action. So, yeah, I'll have to, I'm fine taking this thing through. I'll just have to wrap my head around not being able to do anything for any purpose. Okay.
Director, I think the treasurer raises an interesting point from the standpoint of accounting. Just
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Your audio seems to have gone out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, that's all that good technology we have here. The question I have, it relates to accounting. If these are just assets that are going to dwell somehow in on our balance sheet, I mean, what do we do about that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe, and that is perhaps a separate question that we can handle outside of the rules for where we define these things. But from an accounting perspective, I would not view a unsolicited asset that we are essentially locking away in a kind of a segregated manner. I would not consider that to be part of the balance sheet because it's not an asset we would purport to have custody over, nor we touch. I mean, it's physically, if it's not physically, of course, but if it's in one of our digital wallets, but we're not touching it, not using it, I wouldn't consider that to be an asset. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to chapter.
I would just say maybe on that for any purpose, except for directive of the commission, and that way at least there's an escape valve. It could go to the commission, and we could, if there was a need to, then you'd have an escape valve, But anyway, just kind of mull that over, Anthony. At least that gives us an escape valve to get rid of the unsolicited asset or return it to a rightful owner or something like that, or however,
Through the chair, Commissioner Meyer, understand the point. I want to be very clear about what this unsolicited asset
Yeah.
bucket is really meant to capture. It is not infeasible that a malicious actor will send some kind of digital asset to our wallet that if we were to refund that, then we are hypothetically it's the commission sending an asset to an illicit actor. We don't want to be responsible for that, even if that is a
Right. Yeah, I guess, but the commission
return.
is the arbitrator on it. I mean, if there are, at least you'd have some kind of arbitration. You put some sideboards on it, and act to the commission uh, with due diligence, to prevent, any harm or something like that. I don't know. But give it some thought. I mean, it's not going to hang up these rules because I don't contemplate that we're going to have a lot of these, if any, for a while, but we may have some tomorrow, But at some point in time, you've got to have some kind of an escape valve or a process, to deal with that, whether we send it to, a federal government or something, holding cell, if you want to say that, Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Chairman? Oh, my apologies. Go ahead, Director.
So through the chair, I just want to respond to Commissioner Moore quickly. Again, we do have this concept of intent in both of these definitions. Unsolicited assets are without any intent from the commission.
Mhm.
Solicited assets do have intent from the commission. So that I believe would cover off in the first part of your comment, and the second part in terms of working with some kind of enforcement agency. Again, that's getting into the realm of freeze and seize and interdiction following lawful orders. So I would
Right.
again parse those as two separate things.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's hope we don't have it. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Pope.
And Director Apollo and Governor Gordon or Director Chairman, it's early and I apologize. The issue is ownership and control, and they will most likely appear somewhere on the balance sheet, but they'll be until we can determine the origin and various other factors that are being written into rules, then they will be a restricted asset. And I'm certain will be notes on to the balance sheet that discuss what those restricted assets are, the amounts, but yeah, they'll appear on the balance sheet. It's just what classification that they'll appear under, and most likely it'll be restricted assets until we can determine all of the features or all of the criteria that we're writing into the rules right now.
Thank you. Back to you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the sake of expediency here, I will note that chapters 2 through 5 of the token management rules do not have any updates to them. I've just simply left them in here for context. When we go to chapter 6, this is again where we have the solicitation of assets, section 106, subsection E. We've now added the definition or added a section for solicited assets, in which the commission staff may accept solicited assets from a private or public entity or entities, NGOs, or non-for-profit institutions. The director or commission staff shall review the veracity of solicited assets to determine if the solicited asset stems from illicit sources. So all that is to say is, even though this is not transacting with the Frontier stable token, we would still perform our diligence through on-chain analytics and open source intelligence to make sure that the asset does not come from, again, an illicit actor or a malicious actor. We would just put all of our controls in place before we accept the donation or other contribution. And we've also simply updated the unsolicited assets note here in section 3, subsection A, Romanet 1, to add that definition of locked, where the asset is essentially frozen, but we've used the term freezing to mean something else. So locked just means we're holding it there for the time being. And we do not return those assets, unsolicited assets, unless we are directed to, for example, by a final lawful legal directive. And hopefully, Commissioner Meyer, that responds to part of your comment as well.
All right.
Any questions on the token management rules?
Doesn't appear that there are, so please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I would note is we will now have to go through the public process for promulgation of these rules. What I would suggest is a action by the commission to adopt the reserves management and token management rules for regular rulemaking as amended. So we noted that 2A7 fund note, and direct the executive director to perform all processes required to begin the public notice and comment period.
So I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Meyer and Commissioner Pope. All in favor signify by, let's say, we'll say aye. Let's go around just so we have it clear.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Navis,
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace,
Oops, sorry.
Commissioner Myers raised his thumb, Commissioner Racinas.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Pope.
Aye.
I would be an aye. I believe that carries unanimously. That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is correct. Back to our agenda quickly. Next on the docket is the quarterly blockchain selection exercise. As a reminder, the first month of every quarter, we do review criteria, and we had not updated that in some time, which is quite fine. But the team did take a look at the criteria as well as some of the discussions we've been having and wanted to suggest one update to create something called a partner blockchain as a concept in these criteria. So action would be to review and approve this one criterion under the authority of our statutorily and through our procurement rules. And an alternative would be just to keep the existing criteria. Background, everyone is well familiar with. This is what we just keep in this document for context, but we've seen this many, many times. I will note that last quarter, there were no updated criteria, but through our scoring assessment, we did onboard one new candidate blockchain, which is Etherlink, and we are having conversations with that team as we speak. And for our Q2 exercise, agency resources performed an internal review of the existing criteria and suggest the following update be added to the framework ahead of a month-long period of outreach and assessment. And this would be adding the concept of a partner blockchain to our potential candidate blockchains or for candidacy, wherein a partner blockchain is a network that is created, managed, owned, or otherwise governed by one of the following entity types, including a third-party partner or vendor engaged by the Commission, a licensed service provider engaged by the Commission as defined in the Commission's reserves management and token management rules, and a direct listing exchange or government-regulated listing exchange as defined in the Commission's listing exchange policy. And I would note that any of those networks would also need to meet the following criteria upon full analysis by the Commission, which they achieve all of the binary criteria. So those are the 6 different binaries we have, including things like frees and sees. And they do not receive an immediate disqualification on any criteria as described in additional concerns. Any partner blockchain that meets the above definition shall be considered a candidate blockchain. So just by way of an example, we now have onboarded Kraken as a government-regulated listing exchange. Kraken has a blockchain called Inc. What this would allow us to do is hypothetically deploy the Frontier stable token on the Inc. blockchain. We've noted in our discussions with a number of different teams, they are building blockchains, or they have smaller networks with less of a network effect, but they have the technology and they're already incorporated into our operations. They've gone through diligence as part of, let's say, the LSP process. So what we're proposing here is to formally put some of those networks through the full process to make sure there are no disqualifications or other issues. But if we are already partnered with a firm that has its own network that is up to our muster, then we would work to onboard them as a candidate blockchain. And I will note that in our selection criteria that we host on our website, these no other binaries or other additional considerations, benefits, scoring rubric has changed, but we've simply added the partner blockchains verbiage there. I will note, Mr. Chairman, that Commissioner Navas has a hand up.
Please proceed, Commissioner Navas.
Thank you, Governor Anthony. Why do we need this? If these blockchains are going to have to go through the review anyways, why do we need to add this new concept?
So, through the chair, Commissioner Navas, this might be an instance in which we want to work with a chain that is kind of getting off the ground and want to be one of the first movers on that network. Just as an example, one that we would, again, this is not a chain that's actually, we'll use a hypothetical, right? So we are engaged with Layer 0 for token issuance and interoperability. They are working on a new network called Zero, the Zero blockchain. That network is not out yet, but it is likely that we will, we might want to be an early partner, early adopter of that chain to kind of capitalize on some of the momentum behind any given launch, right? Being an initial partner on those networks. Now, if that is the case, they may not score high enough in criteria around how long they've been in existence. They may get doxing points for that. User base and things like volume locked on a given network or stable coins on a network may be low, but that also means there may be a ability for us to be one of the first movers again and perhaps capitalize on the momentum on a given chain. So it's meant to accommodate those types of scenarios, and we are seeing a few of those on our side. That being said, we also don't want to hand wave the process and simply say because we're partnered with someone, we are going to simply launch on their network. We would want to make sure we put them, at least understand from the technical perspective that they meet all of the binary criteria, freeze and seize are possible on that network, and that also that the transaction fees are low, that the block times are short, and those other criteria are met as part of an analysis of that network.
Okay, and how does that work against the prior analysis that we've done for other candidate blockchains that may not have met the criteria and were not onboarded previously?
Commissioner Navas, I need a little more specificity about the question.
So in the past, when we did the initial analysis of candidate blockchains, right? Some of them met the criteria, some were scored, some were approved, and some were not approved based on certain criteria that was met. By introducing this concept, does that have an impact in any prior analysis that we have done? I want to make sure that we're not introducing a new concept that could potentially be viewed as benefiting certain parties, whereby in the past we may have yielded a different decision based on the review process. I want to continue being fair and transparent through this process. Do we believe that by introducing this concept, we could be generating a result that was different than we did in the past to other blockchains?
Through the chair, Commissioner Navas, that is not my perspective. I think if we were trying to do something along those lines, then this recommendation would not just be a criteria update, but also a recommendation to onboard several brand new candidates out of the blue, and that's not the case. This is really meant to kind of future-proof the process as new technology continues to be rolled out, and we have a functional token in the world that we may want to, again, capitalize on momentum of launches by, again, partners that we have also done further diligence on beyond just the blockchain selection, beyond just the blockchain criteria, where we've actually partnered with them in other material ways, either through formal engagement or the LSP process.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we thought about that, because if we do adopt this and it goes into effect, I want to make sure that the commission has had a view onto, prior decisions, making sure that we're doing this. Obviously, it's only going to be implemented and in effect as of the date, so prior actions would not be under scope of this new. But I want to make sure also that the parties that are engaged with us don't have any questions about this, and this is not being viewed as a potential change just something that was material to the commission in the past.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, I want to be a little more specific. I guess, Anthony, the question is, have we not, I guess, approved anybody that has met the 6 binary questions? Because these new people that we're thinking about, I'd call it fast tracking, they still have to meet the binary questions. But in the past, have we had any blockchains that met the binary questions and they necessarily didn't score as high as we wanted, and we did not onboard them?
So through the chair, Commissioner Meyer, there are several networks that did meet the binaries but did not score high enough to be on board as candidate blockchains. In previous meetings some quarters ago, the commission made the determination that if any network scores 50% of points or higher after meeting all the binaries, they would be on board as a candidate blockchain. So there are some that did meet the binaries, did not have a high enough score to be on board as a candidate. And so we've left them in kind of the pile of teams and foundations and developers that we follow up with on a quarterly basis. We do perform outreach to all of these different networks for their first party sources. Say, if there are any material updates to your technology or what have you, then let us know and we will reassess and rescore. And that's the work that our senior business project management analyst does on a quarterly basis to get that information and then validate it. This process with partner blockchains, we're not only are we doing the binaries and making sure that they don't have any material breaks there and no immediate disqualifications, but I'd also again reiterate that if we are onboarding these partner blockchains, they've also gone through some other type of material diligence for either the LSP onboarding or through that listing exchange process.
Yeah, we do have to be careful on that because I think we could be picking winners and losers. I understand why we're picking these winners, but maybe have something in there that would try to say we've got that it's a conditional thing that if you get your scores up, you can't do anything with longevity if that's a score, and if that isn't, maybe in these things that you're discounting about not having to have, the volume and the longevity and the different things, that it should be equally applied. If there's some metric that we've identified that'll work, because otherwise we could get some challenges to our processes being preferential or discriminatory. And I think where Flavia was going. I understand that. So we need to be maybe put another metric in there that everybody sees that because if you change it for one, you have to change it for all. So maybe there's some other metric that could essentially mitigate the need for some existing metrics, but we need to be transparent about it.
Director, any response there?
Through the chair, Commissioner Meyer, I understand the comments. If there are suggestions to better assuage the concern, I'm happy to hear them.
Yeah.
Both to Commissioner Meyer and to Commissioner Navis, when you post rules for comment, there's always a statement of reason. Is there something that we can do to articulate the process so that it indicates not so much a change in policy, and I think this goes to the director as well, as a evolution? And I know this is a dangerous sort of knife edge to walk, but I think the points both of you have made are important. And it does seem to me that there perhaps if we can articulate it in the statement of reasons, that could in some ways address the particular challenge here.
Thank you, Governor. I think that would work for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the right step, Mr. Chairman.
So, Mr. Chairman, I will note that this, I know we're just coming off of the reserve management, the token management rules. This is policy on our side, so we won't have necessarily a statement of reason behind this. Um, what I could offer here, if there are concerns about, that this be perceived in some way, shape, or form as favoritism, I certainly understand we want to avoid that. I think we've done an exceptional job of doing that along the way, and I don't see why we would stop doing that now. One of the things, again, because we're not proposing that this would impact any networks this month, or we don't know if it would impact any networks this quarter. What we can do, rather than approving this change now, is take this back as a team. What we can do is, I guess what I would propose in kind of this live format here is take a look at our criteria, see which ones are perhaps less achievable by a new network, right? So number of users, value locked, stablecoin issuance, and create a kind of sub scoring matrix to say these are the points that would be available for a newer network. And then we could take a look internally and see if there's a recommendation on points that would need to be scored by the technical merits of a network, which I would assume would be higher probably than the 50% that we currently require. And then also make sure that doesn't affect any other, do an assessment to make sure it doesn't affect any other chains that, to Commissioner Meyer's point, meet the binaries but scored low enough. So we can continue workshopping this. There's no urgent need to approve this right now. Again, it's part of a quarterly process. Is how we just do the cadence, but there's no impetus. And if we think this needs a little bit more time in the oven, happy to keep baking.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, sure.
Just quickly, is that Anthony, you said there's a couple of things there that these folks didn't meet, which was, the volume and the longevity. And, let's hypothetically, I don't have the scoring matrix in front of me, but let's just say the total of those was 5, or whatever. And then you add another category to our whole list so everybody sees it, so it's transparent. It says existing relationships in excess of a year or something like that. It's worth 5 points, and so that gives you some flexibility if they meet the binaries, but they don't click all of the boxes, they've got a 5 point spread there on an existing relationship over a year. And then we're transparent. We're saying that existing relationship means something. This is what it means. And that gives you a little bit of wiggle room there. And I don't know, I think that might be a way to at least consider it. We can, I think moving this policy ahead is fine, but I think that we have to put that into our onboarding policy so everybody understands the rules. So that's what I'd suggest, something like that.
Fair enough. Thank you. Director, are you still with us? You've left ours.
Yeah, it looks like we lost him. Staff, can you check with him, make sure he's still available?
Yes, his Zoom crashed, so he'll be rejoining us momentarily.
Well, good. I hope I didn't offend him. I almost got a smile out of Flavia there. Her lips went a little bit sideways. There, I got one now. Yeah, there we go.
I don't think so. I think he was just technology, Kurt. I don't
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah. But what do you think, Flavia? Would that kind of work, that we actually had kind of an offset thing there for that we actually score what we think existing relationship means to us?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, Kurt, like I was sharing, that we are remaining fair, transparent through
Yeah.
the process as we've been from the very beginning,
Yeah.
right? So I don't want any change to impact our track record of transparency and accountability,
Yeah.
and that we think about this, in detail before implementing any changes and make sure that they are needed. That's
Yeah.
all that I'm asking. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Because yeah, if you can get on the ground floor on some of these things, and because there's probably a an initial benefit for being on the ground floor, but does that outweigh the benefit of tried and true to existence? I mean, I think that's kind of where we're at now, trying to get our stable token implemented. You've got big players out there that everybody knows that they're functional, and so we have to get our foot in the door. So
I note that Director Apollo is back. Um, Thanks.
Always a little bit of excitement, Mr. Chairman. So I did miss about 2 minutes of discussion. I apologize for that. It
we're talking
sounds
about you, Anthony. That's okay.
as
Okay.
uh, Mr. Chairman, what it sounds like is this needs a little bit more time just to bake out some of the potential metrics to make sure it's better in alignment with the process to date and the existing metrics that we have. So again, noting that we do not have any timeliness to this one. It's just part of our quarterly process, but nothing precluding us from readdressing this in a month's time. I would put that into the conversation.
That sounds good, Director Apollo, and I'm noting our time is kind of getting close. So
Yes. So, Mr. Chairman, I know we have a hard stop in about 5 minutes. I would suggest that we punt on the conversations for executive session. Again, we could send a note out to see if that makes sense to have as another special session, or we hold off on those until the next month. What I would note is we do have several JCQs that we had looked to get approved, so we could begin the onboarding process for BFY 27. We've got about 2 months to get that done, but there is some time sensitivity there with contracts as well as all the vendor contracts we need to get through.
Move to executive session, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, just through the chair, Mr. Chairman, sorry, Commissioner Meyer,
yep.
I would move my suggestion, again, to the commission's behest, but my suggestion is that we take the topics for executive session and perhaps punt those to a special meeting so we can cover off on the blockchain data analytics and intelligence policy, as well as the appointment of the executive director at a later time. What I would perhaps simply suggest, based on getting some of this done, that is time sensitive, is whether or not the commission has a chance to review the 6 job content questionnaires and would be comfortable moving forward with that. But recognizing that if we do not have time to do that in a public forum, then perhaps it's not the appropriate path forward.
Members, what is your desire? I think my schedule is probably the determiner of how much time we can take, and I apologize it's so full. Certainly, we can move to another, but I imagine everybody's got a 8 o'clock hard stop. So it might make sense to put this off, but plan something a little bit later.
Yeah, well, Mr. Chairman, I'm missing the meeting now to do this meeting, so I don't have anything that I'm, going to be missing after this that I can't miss. But, I'm not as, I guess, every Tuesday meeting is every Tuesday meeting for me. And catch up. Whatever you guys want to do.
I see Commissioner Racines has her hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I fear I've asked this question before. I would maybe question whether the commission needs to approve JCQs. Those are a very agency level decision, and a lot of what's in there, I mean, frankly, we're just not going to know. I mean, as far as percentages of duties and whatnot, I would liken that a little bit to you, Governor, approving JCQs for an agency out in the hinterlands. I might be missing something there, but uh, I'll say this somewhat bluntly. I think we've delegated probably more consequential authority to the agency already. JCQs, I don't have a lot of heartburn over. So I just don't know if they need a formal vote by the commission.
So through the chair, in quick recognition of Auditor Sinas's comment, we have approved them in the past. However, recognizing that as a historical perspective, this at one point was just myself as the team, right? So the historical context was the commission wanted to see that we made sure that the compliance resource was doing the compliance and risk management work, that our CISO was doing the appropriate technical lift. So if the commission is comfortable with us moving forward with these, we can certainly do so without having to review them in depth.
Mr. Chairman,
Madam,
I even just think since we have them and have reviewed them, I don't have any major concerns, but I'm comfortable without a deep dive into them.
okay. Other comments? If there are none, Director, I'd certainly entertain if we want to try to set another meeting, trying to do that. But I'm not sure it's necessary for the JCQs to that point.
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, we can move forward with the JCQs on our own. That does more than fine. We've prepped HRD on that conversation. What we can do is I will follow up with you and your respective teams now that we are at the end of the allotted hour for a meeting that will be just focused on the executive session of our blockchain data analytics and intelligence firm policy, as well as the appointment of a executive director for the next biennium.
Thank you. And I presume that you can reach out to everybody. I apologize that everything is so haywire, but this is a great commission and you all are very flexible, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anything more to come before us, noting that it's the end of the hour?
Mr. Chairman, not from my side.
Any other comments running around? I don't see any. And I think in the spirit of efficiency, I can call us adjourned without objection, if that's okay.
Fine with me. Thanks, guys.
No objection.
No objection.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.